Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to start a new series that I'm super excited about. I have this long list of videos that I can do in this series. So I want to go through and talk about ranking different books, different authors, different series, different genres, ranking all the books that I've read in whatever that category is. So I'm going to do a lot of videos like this, and hopefully they won't be too long, but you'll get an idea of my favorites, hopefully get some recommendations, and I'd love to hear y'all's opinions down in the comments. Okay, so starting out with Ruta Sepetys is, or Sepetys, I can't remember how to pronounce it, but her books are awesome. If you've been around here, I do like historical fiction. However, it is so hard to find good historical fiction that actually teaches you something, that the romance is not distracting, and especially if it's Christian historical fiction, the history side is not necessarily front and center. So, Ruta Sepetys does a fabulous job of teaching me something every book, and I learn about a completely different aspect of the world of history that I had never thought about before. So let's start from the bottom. There are 5 books, and my least favorite is actually the one that I never finished, and that was Out of the Easy. So I'll put a picture here. That one actually came in the box that I got, and I ended up selling it. So the storyline of that one is a girl in New Orleans whose mother was a prostitute, and it's supposed to show like the culture of New Orleans, what that looks like. But I was hoping, maybe it would focus on the main character and not her mother, and then it would not have not go into detail or anything. But I just didn't like the first few chapters and felt like the focus was going to be too much on that house and everything that was going on. So I DNF'd that book and sold it for like $1, but I did not like it. I read a lot of reviews on Goodreads to see if it was worth it, and most of them said that it wasn't, that it wasn't even her best work, that it seemed like she didn't put in as much research into that, so I didn't really feel bad on not finishing it. So that would be the lowest one, 0 stars, because I didn't even finish it. And then the next one would be also the other one that I don't have in print, and that is I Must Betray You. I think that one came out recently. It was interesting. I did learn a lot. I just didn't connect as much to the characters in there and the history, and that one I did listen to, so maybe that could have something to do with it. I don't know. But basically the storyline of that one is this kid, I'm terrible at names so I won't remember, but this kid who is living in Romania, I think is what it is. Terrible at all those countries, but a communist country. I think it was Romania because it was the last one to fall whenever the Iron Curtain fell and the USSR fell apart. So he's living there, and basically the focus of the book, like what it's trying to teach you, is how everyone was a spy. Families were betraying each other, friends were betraying each other. You really couldn't trust anyone. And you don't really know throughout the book like who is a spy and who isn't, because people are constantly getting recruited or just giving in to the pressure and going. I remember so clearly some of the imagery that they used just to explain how destitute they were under the USSR and what a different life it was, and how they had no idea what was going on outside of their communist bloc. And they talk about bananas. Like, they watched a video of some Americans and they were just so shocked that there were bananas on the table in the fruit bowl, and that they weren't scarfing them down because I guess in Romania you never saw fruit, and so bananas were like worshipped as some amazing delicacy. So that really struck me, and I remember that. I don't remember the ending really of that book, and I do believe there is a connection with the characters in Fountain of Silence, but I can't remember exactly what the connection was. And then that one I felt like did have a lot of, it had more violence in it, which was a little bit disturbing in some of the parts. And the romance was just weird. Like, I didn't connect to it. It didn't feel like it should work out. And I think they were school aged. And then there was just a couple of comments that, I don't know, weren't necessary and weren't clean. I don't know what rating I gave that. I probably gave it 3 stars. So that would be number 4 out of 5. So then number 3, this is kind of hard. The 2 and 3 are kind of tied for me. So I had to decide which one I liked least. Probably for number 3, I would put Between Shades of Grey. I read this one, this was the first one of hers that I read back in last July, I think, when we went on vacation. I read it super quick in like a week. And no, sorry, it was the second one I listened to it, or read. I listened to The Fountains of Silence first. Blech, can't talk. So, Between Shades of Grey is about Siberia. So this girl gets taken from her home in Lithuania, and she's thrown into a cattle car to go to Siberia because she has been conversing with a Jew, I believe. And so she's taken with her brother and mother and separated from her father. So she's an artist, so you get a lot of talking about her sketches and stuff, although I think her favorite artist is Edward Munch, who did The Scream. And so when you have kind of like that picture, it's like, well, that's not very good art. But anyways, I did learn a lot in this one, and I loved I think it was the epilogue or the author's note at the end. Let me see. Where she talks about what actually happened and how it was very historical, all the research that she did. So I had no idea about the Baltic states of Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, which were occupied by the Soviet Union, and then they deported a lot of them to Siberia. The author, her father, was the son of a Lithuanian military officer, and he fled with his parents through Germany. So a lot of this is personal family history in here. The Baltic countries were caught between the Soviet and Nazi empires after World War II, and so they disappeared from the maps and sadly from the minds of many. So the world basically forgot about these Baltic states and what went on there, which I thought was so interesting because I'd never really learned about it before. So those who survived the trip to Siberia, they spent 10 to 15 years there, and when they came back, this is what I thought was really interesting. When they came back from Siberia, they found that the Soviets had occupied their homes, they were enjoying all of their belongings, and in some cases had even assumed their names. So everything was lost. They were forced to live in these restricted areas and constantly under surveillance by the KGB. So if they talked about anything that had happened in Siberia, then they would face immediate imprisonment or deportation back to Siberia. So the USSR was hiding this. So no one talked about it for a very long time. In 1991, after approximately 50 years of brutal occupation, the 3 Baltic countries regained their independence peacefully and with dignity. So then now everyone's learning about all these things. And what was really interesting was that in World War II, obviously the USSR was on the side of the Allies. So everyone kind of thought for a while that Joseph Stalin was here to save the day. He was here to help and free the world of Hitler. And so the U.S. was supporting these Soviets, and they didn't even know what was going on behind the Iron Curtain. And so the one picture that I really remember from here, which I think that's what I love about her books, is that you remember some picture from every one of them. The one picture I remember from this is when they're in Siberia and they're on the tip where it's freezing, and they're staring out at the ocean, and they're basically in these, not labor camps, they're literally just trying to survive because it's so cold and they have so little food. And an American ship comes up to bring them supplies, and all the soldiers tell all the prisoners to get in the tents and pretend that they're not there. So the U.S. soldiers drop off all these supplies to the Soviet soldiers and have no idea that there's these thousands of people suffering. And then at the end of the book, well, I won't spoil it, but it's really good, and I think it just gives such a great picture of what was going on behind the Iron Curtain, something that we didn't know about before. There is some romance in here. It's very light and it's just a little bit weird. Again, I couldn't connect to it that much because I think I can't remember if he's a Soviet or, no, I think he's one of the people that was deported, but he starts to work for the Soviets and help them out, I think, but he's kind of like a double-crosser, a spy, and he seems a lot older than her. I think some of the moments were sweet. It just, I don't know, wasn't as great. But I still gave this one 4 stars and really liked it. So then number 2 is almost on the same level as that one. I do really like it a lot. I like both of them. And they're actually both about kind of the same thing, which I thought was so cool. It connects. So if you're going to read them both, read Between Shades of Grey first. And then my number 2 book is Salts of the Sea. So this one is about the main character in here is Lena, and her cousin is Joanna, and she's mentioned in Between Shades of Grey. and she's one of the main characters in here. So the thing that was a little bit difficult for me to get into in this one is that it switches time period, or not time periods, it switches points of view throughout the whole thing. And so you have, I think, four refugees, four different kinds of refugees that you get to learn so much from each different POV. So Joanna is the first one, and she's the cousin of Lena, and she's a Jew. So she is fleeing from Germany, I think. Yeah, these people are all in Germany. Then Florian is the second one, and Florian's great. He's like the dashing hero who has to learn to not think about himself and to help out other people, but he's great. And then Amelia is a young girl who has a very sad, tragic history, but she's just really sweet and has a great ending. And then Alfred is a German, I think. Yeah, Alfred's a German, and he's just straight up evil and selfish, and all he cares about is himself. So you get those four different points of view. And in the beginning, pretty much throughout the whole thing, each person's little snippet is only like 2 pages. So you kind of throw them back and forth. But once you get into it and once they start traveling together, I think it works because you're seeing all from all different sides and you're getting a really full picture of what's happening. So the story is that these 4 refugees are fleeing Germany because the Soviets are coming in and attacking Germany. Who are the bad guys? The Germans are the bad guys in World War II. And then the Russians, the Soviets, were on the side of the Allies. So seemingly, they're the good guys. But this book does a really good job of showing that there isn't good guys and bad guys. I had a teacher in high school who always said history is not cowboys and Indians, that it's not just these people did pure evil and these people do pure good and they fight against the evil. There's always some nuance to it. And so I think this book was really eye-opening and showing that even though the Russians were getting rid of Hitler and the Allies won the war, that there was a lot of evil things that the Russians did as they were pushing Hitler out and pushing the Germans out. So these people are Germans that are being pushed out of their homes because the Russians are advancing and doing terrible, unspeakable things, and so everyone has to run. So there's this ship called the Wilhelm Gustloff, which is a ship that is bigger than the Titanic, and kind of a spoiler, but if you know anything about history, you might know this, I don't know. The Wilhelm Gustloff sinks, and it had less lifeboats than the Titanic had, and I believe that more people died on it. So you can imagine that the end of this book is kind of sad and depressing, but it's still a good story, and you learn so much, and you know the characters. So it also talks about the Amber Room, this entire room that was in, I think, Louis XIV's palace, that was stolen during the end of World War II. The entire room was dismantled, and no one knows where it is. And then Operation Hannibal is another historical thing. So the sinking of the Wilhelm Gustloff is the deadliest disaster in maritime history, with losses dwarfing the death tolls of the famous ships Titanic and Lusitania. Yet remarkably, most people have never heard of it. And then in the back, there's this whole interview with a diver who was like one of the first ones to go down and to explore the ship. Actually, as soon as I'm done with this video, I'm going to go read the website. She has the diver, I think, has a website where he talks about his exploration of the ship and what he found, being the first person to go down there. And then the Amber Room was once called the 8th wonder of the world. It disappeared during the war and remains one of the most enduring mysteries of World War II. It was last seen in 1944. So again, she does such a good job of bringing out a part of hidden history. I feel like her book should be called just like mysteries of history revealed or uncovered or something like that. Not mysteries, but hidden secrets uncovered. So I really like this one. There is a really sweet romance in here. I think I did like the romance. There is mention of a pregnancy because of rape, but that was in the past, and it's just really sweet to see her going through the pregnancy. And then I can't remember if there's any other content in here, but I don't think there was. You can check my Goodreads review for more. And then my number 1 top favorite book by this author is The Fountains of Silence. Also happens to be the biggest one. Now, some people have read it and had different opinions, some of my friends, so I'm kind of scared to read it again, but I love it, and I felt like this was the most historical of them all. So this is about Francisco Franco in Spain, and he is hiding a dark secret. So he's the dictator of Spain. Again, this comes after World War II, 1957, where everyone thinks that the world is great, Hitler's gone, we're all back to normal, there's no more Nazis, but there were so many things going on under the rug that Americans didn't know about. And so Spain is hiding this secret. There's tourists and businessmen, and there's ambassadors coming to Madrid, and Madrid looks great. They have this great facade on. And so among them is the main character, Daniel Matheson. He's the son of an oil tycoon who arrives in Madrid with his parents, hoping to connect with the country of his mother's birth through the lens of his camera. So he's actually from Texas. His mother is from Madrid. They go back to go visit, and he's a photographer, which was a really cool storyline and neat to see him being a photographer. So photography and fate introduce him to Ana, whose family's underweaving obstacles reveal the lingering grasp of the Spanish Civil War, as well as chilling definitions of fortune and fear. Daniel's photographs leave him with uncomfortable questions amid shadows of danger. He is backed into a corner of difficult decisions to protect those he loves. Lives and hearts collide, revealing an incredibly dark side to the sunny Spanish city. So you really see two distinct viewpoints in this book. You have the bright, cheery, big hotel. I can't remember what it's called, but it's one of these like famous hotels that was actually started around that time just for the Americans who were coming over. And everything's rich and everything's great. Everyone has a that rich life. And then you see the other side of the employees who are working for the hotel. They're literally living in these shacks, and they have very large families that are struggling to even get food and comfort. And so it just does such a great job of revealing these secrets that no one knows about. I loved the characters in here. I loved Daniel. And I actually have not read the print version yet because I listened to it, and the audio is superb. If you like audiobooks at all, I would so recommend listening to it because they have just great accents. They have the Spanish accents. And then throughout the book, there's little historical documents, quotes from historical documents. Oh, the Hotel Hilton was started in Madrid, Castellana Hilton. So it has little quotes from real things that were happening at that time, and the narrator did such a good job of reading those in that Spanish accent. So I loved this one. I think it's kind of debatable what happens, but it's possible that there is a fade to black scene in here. So just be aware of that there's nothing bad that happens. There's just situations that I would not put myself in, that I do not think are the wisest places to be. But I think that the friendship in here is really sweet, and the ending, or the pseudo ending, is disappointing at first, and you're like heartbroken. But then it does end pretty well, although it's still like you wish it would have gone better before. There's also pictures in the back of what happened. The historical thing that's being covered here is the babies were just taken away from parents in Madrid. I can't remember if there was a specific reason for it, but the dictator Franco was doing this, and a lot of families were told that their child died when they were born, and then years later they're reunited after they find out that the children are looking for their parents. And it didn't come out until I think the 1980s, so no one talked about it for 30 years. Spain kept it really covered up. I just really love this book and love the characters in there, and I loved the storyline. It was so just like heart-wrenching, but so good and emotional, and I would definitely recommend this one if you read any of them. So there's my ranking of the 5 Ruta Sepetys books. I hope that you guys enjoyed this, and let me know down in the comments if you agree with my ranking or if you would switch it up a little bit. And I will see you guys back here next week. Bye!